What is up, Gig Nation? Welcome back to the channel. Today marks a very big day in my gig economy journey. It has now been exactly 1.5 years since I began delivering with GrubHub. Now, GrubHub wasn't the very first app that I ever used in the gig economy. I started with Lyft and Uber way back in the day. I then tried out some moving apps with Dolly. I got onto Amazon Flex a couple years after that. I then started with DoorDash and realized that I liked delivery, but I wanted to switch it up, so I added GrubHub into the mix. After delivering with GrubHub for such a long time, I decided that it may be a good time to help you guys out, to impart some wisdom on some of my subscribers that might either just be getting started with GrubHub or those that are curious about delivering with GrubHub in the future. So the goal of this video will be to give you guys an overview of what it's like to deliver with GrubHub, the pros and cons, and things that you need to know before you get started. The biggest thing that I always tell people before they start delivering with GrubHub is that you're most likely going to get hit with a wait list. There's going to be some waiting time. I have heard of drivers getting started with them and getting accepted almost immediately, so it depends on your city, but for most people you're going to be waiting a few months. For me, it was closer to 6 months, but it was absolutely worth it. So if you're looking to jump into delivering and GrubHub's your favorite, think about potentially applying to some other delivery apps while you wait to make sure that you're actually having something that can bring in income quickly. I also recommend delivering with DoorDash and delivering with Uber Eats. Those are a couple of apps that like to accept drivers quickly, so you're more likely to get hired on, start delivering, and start earning some money. But there are definitely some reasons why you're going to want to be with GrubHub long term, so definitely get that application in. Just don't count on getting started with them right away. Now, one of the cool things that I like about delivering with GrubHub is the heat bags that they send you. These are by far the best in the business. They're gonna be thicker, more heavier, better insulated, and better for keeping your food warm for your customers. You get a standard one that works for keeping just about any sized order in, and then you get a pizza delivery one for your larger pizza deliveries. Because they're so much sturdier, they're less likely to tip over in your car. So that's one thing where customers do get frustrated if the order tips over, their food spills, or it gets messed up, pushed around. They might leave you a bad review, but a sturdier bag like the GrubHub bag is going to help you avoid that. Another big thing about delivering with GrubHub is that you're going to want to schedule your blocks to consistently see those orders coming through. I've definitely had times where I've just logged on and I get a good amount of orders coming my way, but it is not consistent. And I've heard the same thing from subscribers that work and deliver with GrubHub in other cities, that to consistently get orders, you want to get blocks. So let's look at the block scheduling process, because this is definitely a lot different than other apps like DoorDash and Uber Eats. With GrubHub, you schedule out your blocks in advance, and there's different tiered system for drivers. So when you first get started, you're at the partner level, which is the lowest level of drivers. Now, if you do certain things to maintain a high acceptance rate, a low block drop rate, and other metrics, you get bumped up to a premier status and then to a pro status. And these higher status levels means that you can schedule your blocks more quickly, and you also get access to some cool features like catering orders, which definitely pay out well. Now, personally, I've always just stayed at the partner level, and I've done this because I have a multi-app process. I keep other apps online like DoorDash and Uber Eats, so I'm not worried about necessarily getting all of my orders through GrubHub. If GrubHub is the only app that you work for, then you'll probably want to consider trying to get bumped up to a higher level, because you're absolutely going to need this to get consistent work coming through the GrubHub app. Personally, by having multiple apps in play, I get to take advantage of all the features that I love about GrubHub, but I don't have to worry about stuff like keeping my acceptance rate too high, which works out well for me. This allows me to really feel like an independent contractor because I'm not forced to accept everything that comes my way. And because I have other apps that can also send me orders, I can make sure that I'm only getting the highest paying orders from all apps. And I feel like personally this helps me keep a consistently high income when I'm delivering in the gig economy. As a partner on the GrubHub platform, being the lowest level, I don't have to worry about my acceptance rate, which is similar to how DoorDash and Uber Eats also work. You don't have to worry about accepting every single order. And GrubHub has always been very good about transparency in pay. They show you everything up front, from the total GrubHub contribution to your pay to what the tip's going to be. They give you that total payout number and the total distance that you're going to drive. So it's really easy to make that decision as to which orders you want to accept. And I have a lot of respect for GrubHub for doing this, because a lot of apps didn't really do this until a lot of pressure was put on them by politicians. DoorDash and Uber Eats haven't always had this model. In the past, they had only shown you an estimate, or your base pay. Tips would kind of be factored in later, and you weren't really sure what that was going to be, which makes it harder to accept orders that are going to be beneficial for you as a driver. With GrubHub, not only do I see this information, but for me personally, the orders that I see tend to be a little bit higher on payout on average, which has always drawn me to them as a platform. Now, there are definitely trade-offs here. While GrubHub has been higher on average in payouts, I see a lot fewer orders and consistency just isn't there. So it definitely makes sense to have these other apps in my back pocket, because I really just could not rely on GrubHub for consistent earnings coming through that platform. There have been a few other very important things that I've learned while delivering with GrubHub, so let's go through those real quick. The first thing is that you definitely want to track all of your mileage when you're delivering with GrubHub. You can easily do this just by writing down that number on your odometer before starting a delivery trip, and then when you're done at the end of the day, writing down that new number, subtracting the latter from the former, and finding that total mileage for your deliveries. There's also a lot of free apps and some other paid apps out there that can help you track your mileage. And as a delivery driver, as an independent contractor, your mileage is going to be your biggest deduction. So by keeping track of all of these miles, multiplying them by the standard deduction rate of close to 59 cents per mile, you're going to shield yourself from a lot of taxes later on and effectively lower your tax burden by quite a bit. GrubHub's not going to track this number for you. If you want to, you can go back through all of your pay history at the end of the year and try and write down these numbers and add them up manually. But trust me, that's going to be a big pain. So it makes sense to start doing it, start tracking on your own, or start using an app as soon as you get started. And once you know about what you're earning and about what you are paying on gas and expenses, you can start estimating how much tax money you want to pay. Now, I definitely recommend talking to a tax professional, but if you're looking to just gauge how much money you should be setting aside, a good rule of thumb is to take something like 20 to 25% of your total earnings. Now, if you're properly tracking all of your miles, there's a good chance that your actual tax burden will be much lower than this, but it's always good to set aside more money. This can help you save for unexpected things in life, even things that might not be related to delivering with GrubHub. Taking low pay orders. You're definitely going to see some low pay orders on the GrubHub app from time to time. Now, if GrubHub's your main app and you're not multi-apping with other apps, then you're going to need to maintain a high acceptance rate if you want to move up to that Premier or Pro level. This means that you can't be very picky and you can really only not accept the lowest paying orders. But if you're happy at that partner level and you have other apps at your disposal, then I definitely recommend not taking those low pay orders. It goes without saying that I definitely recommend having multiple apps ready and applying for DoorDash and Postmates, as I've mentioned many times in this video. Your vehicle choice is also going to have a massive impact on your earnings. If you're using a vehicle that gets good mileage, it was a cheap buy, let's say it's an older vehicle, I always recommend Hondas or Toyotas. That's not saying that there aren't other vehicles that are reliable, that aren't going to have high maintenance costs and also get good MPG. If you can find one of these, or better yet, you already have one of these, your total cost of doing business is going to be much, much lower. You definitely don't want to forget your heat bag while you're out there. This is like one of the most important things to bring when you're delivering food. Customer satisfaction is imperative, and getting your food to your customer while it's still hot, very critical. Now, while I've recommended multi-apping, I don't necessarily recommend it to beginners. What I mean by this is, yes, you can definitely have multiple apps at your disposal, but don't run them at the same time. If GrubHub is slow, just turn it off, move over to DoorDash or Uber Eats and start working with them. You definitely don't want to confuse having too many orders coming in at once when you're brand new. This is a quick way to get your ratings lowered and to possibly make a mistake that could hurt you going forward delivering with GrubHub. Now, the GrubHub app for a long time has been very nice. They haven't really put a ton of money into updating the app to the extent that apps like Uber Eats and DoorDash have, which have been kind of nice. It's made it kind of laid back to deliver food with them. But as of lately, things are changing, and they are doing things like making sure that as soon as you accept an order, you start heading towards that restaurant. This can be frustrating if you've delivered to that restaurant a bunch of times. You know that normally they have a longer wait time, but the app forces you to head towards them. For that reason, knowing your restaurants is really important. If a restaurant tends to take a long time and the order isn't that high of a payout, you definitely should not be accepting orders like this, because it's not going to make sense for you as an independent contractor. If this order takes 45 minutes, maybe even longer, because you're waiting at the restaurant once you get there, all of a sudden even a decent payout is not going to translate into a good hourly wage. Your communication with customers and also with merchants is going to be imperative to being successful. When you arrive at a restaurant, the first thing that you want to do is go inside and show whoever is working at that restaurant your order. That way they know that you are there, and they know to get your order out to you as soon as it becomes ready. There's going to be times when you get frustrated, but it's important not to take that frustration out on restaurant merchants. It's also very important to maintain that contact and communication with your customer. The GrubHub app does a lot of things to prompt you to text that customer, especially once that delivery is made. You'll send a text letting the customer know that it was dropped off. Customers definitely appreciate this. And if anything else comes up while you're delivering and slows you down, I recommend shooting a text over to that customer to let them know. Parking tickets can be a huge pain as an independent contractor. That's because no one's going to reimburse you for this, and it's going to come directly out of your pay. It can make an hour or so unprofitable because you'll be using all of those earnings to pay off that parking ticket. To avoid these, I try and avoid commercial only 30-minute zones, those yellow zones that specifically say they're only for commercial drivers. You are not a commercial driver unless you have a commercial delivery pass. As a general rule of thumb, it's always better to park in private property as opposed to somewhere on the street where you might get ticketed. If you park in a commercial zone because you're running late and you don't know what to do, there's a good chance that you'll end up with a ticket. But if you park on private property or in someone's driveway, you have the potential to get towed, but this normally takes 30, 45 minutes or longer. Usually you're in and out pretty quick, so it's pretty low odds that this ever happens to you. It's a little bit of a safer bet if you know that something's going to be quick. You definitely don't want to be a dick and block somebody in, so use this advice within reason. The last point of advice almost comes without saying. Avoid those long orders. Even if the payout's pretty decent, a lot of times this takes you far away from your next order, and that's going to lower your pay over time. That covers just about everything that I wanted to go over. I actually have a GrubHub block scheduled. They texted me, reminded me to turn my app on, so I'm going to go ahead and call this a video. If there's anything that I missed, please leave it down below so that we can help out these new GrubHub delivery drivers. If you like this video, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for all of the latest GrubHub news and other delivery news like Uber Eats, DoorDash, anything related to the gig economy. We cover it here at Gig Nation.